Hi guys, welcome back to another Creative Tap tutorial with me, John. Now in this tutorial what we're going to be doing is having a look at pre-processing our raw images inside of Adobe Camera Raw. Okay, now the place I'm getting the raw images that I'm working with today is from this website. It's called wesaturate.com. You make an account and you can download some raw images. Some of them are just JPEG, but some of them are raw, some of them are JPEG. So raw and JPEG, and they're really nice assets to kind of work with, and yeah, so I would recommend going here. I'll put the link in the description of the one that I'm using. So yeah, let's dive on in. So I'm going to open mine up, and when you open it up, everything will open up in Adobe Camera Raw. Okay, now this is what the image will come in like, because if you just this little icon down here, it'll pop up, like I said, in this window for Camera Raw. You can see that the camera that this photo is taken on is a Canon 1200D. Now when I just click this little thing down here, it's because these are the adjustments I made, and this is what we started with, and you can see this one's what we started with. You can see if we zoom in, there's a lot of highlights on her face. The background, we're missing a lot of detail, and you can see that I brought in a lot of this kind of detail back, a lot of the detail in her face, and then we've got a lot more to work with if we were to color grade it. Okay, so there we go. Let's just zoom back out. Now the first thing we're going to look at, zoom out, sorry. The first thing we're going to look at is white balancing. Now there's multiple ways to alter the white balance of an image. You can, if you come over to here, you can see as shot, so that's what it comes in as. You can go through these presets, so auto correct it, which does a kind of decent job. You can go to daylight, say it was taken in daylight, tungsten lighting if it was under tungsten lights, fluorescent lighting if it was under fluorescent lighting, flash, you know, you've got loads to work with in there. I'm going to go back to as shot, so this is what we're working with. It's quite warm and you know, it looks nice, but again, it may not be kind of where we want to start with if we want to color grade this. Okay, so if you then come up to white, this eyedropper by here, white balance tool, you can also use this. So what I would do is I would zoom in. So you want to pick somewhere which has got a relative amount of grey tones. So I'm probably going to come in here. So if I get my color sampler tool, as I move around, if you look at the top right, just by here, it says R, G and B. As I move around, I'm looking for somewhere which has got fairly similar numbers in there, and that'll mean it's very grey. So 153, I'll probably go somewhere around about here. You'll probably have to work around your image. If I come to the green, for example, by here, it's got a lot of red, a lot of green, and not a lot of blue, and so that won't give you the best result. So I'm going to come in here to some of these greys. 159, 143, 135. I think that's probably as close as I'm going to get. So if I click, sorry, it's the wrong one. That's the color sampler tool. We want the white balance tool by here. So if I just click in there, okay, you'll see it's done a little bit of a change. So let's zoom out. Okay, so it's a lot greener now. So if I turn this button on and off, you can see this is the difference we've made. And as I'm turning this on and off, the temperature and the tint sliders, they're moving, and that's the alteration that's been made. Okay, so I'll keep that on. Now the other way is you can come in here and kind of make it greener, make it colder, make it warmer. So you can do it like that, but I prefer to do it with this sampling. Okay, using that white balance tool. Okay, so then we'll get something like this, and if we come back, yeah, it may not look as warm and summery, but we're getting some of the detail in this. We can take it into Photoshop and color grade it to, you know, our heart's content. Now, the next thing I'm going to look at is the next bunch of stuff down. So we've got exposure. You can turn it up, you can turn it down, but it does the whole image together. We've got, if we turn it down, we've got a lot more detail in his skin tones. However, you know, we're crushing the detail in the darks by here. So if we turn it up, yeah, we're bringing that back, but we're losing the detail here. So I may nudge the exposure a little bit, depends on the image, but because we've got a lot of dynamic range in here with the darks and the lights, I'll probably come into the highlights and shadows. So bring the shadows up a little bit, don't want to make her dress too bright, so just bring them up. So I'm looking at the backs of the trees, we're getting some more in there. So I'll turn this up, and then the highlights, I'm going to turn the highlights down, and I'll do the same for the whites. So if we kind of, if you look at our histogram up here, where I hover over, here's our whites, here's our highlights, here's the main exposure, you've got the shadows then, and the blacks. Okay, so you can also look at the histogram for reference. We want to bring more detail up into these. Let's modify this. I'm just going to modify my blacks, bring out a little bit more detail on that background, and then bring our highlights down so we've got a little bit more detail in her face. Now we can have a look at the exposure and bring it up or down if we want to. I'm actually going to leave mine as is. You can go into the contrast. I would only ever bring the contrast down, so you can always bring the contrast back in Photoshop. Okay, I would never push the contrast up because you're just going to crush that detail and lose all the detail in the trees. So either leave as is, or if you want to bring it down just a touch, you can, but I'm probably going to leave mine as it was. Now the next thing we want to look at is if we zoom in, there's a little bit of, if we zoom in better down by here, I think I've actually already gone in and done this because I did this earlier just as a little test. Let's turn these back to 0, so I'm in the lens correction because there's a little bit of purple shine. You can see the purple shine right there, and that's chromatic aberration. So if we come down to here, you can see we've got this purple fringe in. So what you'll need to do is just up the purple amount, and just a little bit, and I'm looking at his skin by here as well, so you can see we've got a little touch of purple. So up the purple amount, so we'll get rid of it, and it could turn things grey, so don't push it too far. I'm more concerned about his skin actually by here. Maybe hard to see on recording, but there is a little bit, and you can also alter how far this stretches. So if I push this all the way, you can see, look, it's eating in, turning it completely grey. So that's the bit it's kind of looking, that's the bit I'm more concerned about. So I don't want to push it too much, so I'll bring it up to about 4, maybe 5, and then I'll bring this down because it's just doing this colour area. It's this sort of very desaturated blue to this pink. But then if you want to come into the skin tones, you can open it up to here, but it can start to eat in a bit too much. So I think I'll go with that. And again, if we turn this on and off, you might not be able to see too much in here on the recording, but it is doing a little bit. So that's kind of how I would go in and modify that. And if there was any green fringing, which there isn't actually any in here that I could see, maybe a touch by there, that might be the grass coming through. It would be on the other side, so let's have a look at the skin down here. I think we're good for green. So yeah, cool. Let's fit this back. So fit in view. And the last bit I want to do is look at the noise. So if I turn this to 100%, because that's the best place to look. Still got a bit of fringe in by there. But you can go in Photoshop and kind of get that out, because when we push that, when it's on black, it's going to kind of go very red. So again, let's go to 100%, look for the noise just in this area by here. Come into the detail tab, and this is what it was before, so you can see there's more there now. If you go to the luminance, so I'm just going to up this, you can up it to 100 and it'll get rid of it completely, but you'll probably start to lose detail in her face then. Yeah, a little bit of detail. So, you know, it's nice to have a little bit of it in there, but there's a little bit too much, so I'll probably put this to about 15. And yeah, I got rid of a little bit. Maybe I'll push it up a little bit more, and then I can turn this on and off, and you can see there's a little bit of a correction in there. It's natural to have some, but there was just a little bit too much for me. So if you did want to get rid of it all, then be careful with it, because it does start getting rid of detail. So I'll put mine to about 20, I think, and it'll still have a little bit in there. Okay, so now if we fit this to view, and go back, you can see if we turn this on and off, what we did in here, you're not going to see much of a difference from out here, but we just did it inside. Lens correction, again, if we go back into her skin by here, turn turn this on. There we go. So we're getting rid of a little bit and turn it on and off. There's a little bit of a shift on mine. This on a dress actually turns to red, so you could probably smooth that out a bit. I wonder, does that smooth it? Or maybe bringing it down to the blue, possibly. But be careful with this one. Then let's come out, and then this basic one by here. This one's where we make the biggest change. You know, we're bringing in a lot of detail. Just look sort of around this area. When we turn this back on, a lot more detail in here and a lot more detail in her hair as well. We're not getting lost with all the brightness there. So what I would be doing next, once I've treated this image, is clicking open image, and then you can grade it to your heart's content back into Photoshop, because you brought in a lot of the detail back. You can always grade it to that warm orange summery look again, but you've just got a lot more detail to work with. So that website again was wesaturate.com. You can come in here, and I think here it is. So this user, I'm Denise. You can use these. They've uploaded them. So go ahead and kind of pick one for yourself, have a go, and yeah. So that's kind of a little tutorial on just basic treatment with Camera Raw. I will be doing some sort of color grading tutorials in the future, how to get that kind of filmic look, different looks for different times of day, stuff like that. So cheers for tuning in, guys. Give us a comment, rate, subscribe, share and all that. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, and tune in again. Hopefully see you soon.